that's okay. It's my pleasure to introduce our second EdTalk speaker, Jeremy Adams. Jeremy is a teacher at Bakersfield High School. He's the author of 2 books on teaching, Full Classrooms, Empty Selves, and The Secrets of Timeless Teachers, Instruction That Works in Every Generation, which was just recently published. His writing has appeared in the Washington Post, the Huffington Post, and C-SPAN. He's also won accolades for his teaching, including the 2014 California State Teacher of the Year Award, which is very impressive, and he's one of ours. So thanks to Jeremy for coming out, and I'll turn it over to Jeremy Adams.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me better? Yes? Thank you for the introduction. My name is Jeremy Adams. I'm a teacher at Bakersfield High School and also here at CSUB. Most exciting for me, of course, is the fact that I just had my first big national book published, The Secrets of Timeless Teachers, Instruction That Works in Every Generation. And I have to tell you, speaking of timeless teachers, I am really impressed with the turnout this morning and this afternoon. As we all know, the end of July is an interesting time in the life of teachers. Gone is the magic and the splendor of June, and the harsh reality of mid-August is right around the corner. In fact, I have to tell you that in a few weeks, I know that we're supposed to look like the owl on the left, inspired, happy, ready to go, but the reality is we look closer to the one on the right, and why not? Teaching is tough. In fact, I saw this meme at the end of May, and I couldn't stop laughing. Now, I have to tell you, there's a very personal reason why I like this meme. And the reason is I just turned 40 years old in early June. And you know what's really annoying about that? I can remember thinking not that long ago that 40 was old. Do you remember that? It wasn't that long ago. In fact, I used to make jokes about this all the time in my political science classes. I used to say, I can't go in the House of Representatives, I'm only 22. Then the joke became, I can't go into the Senate, I'm only in my mid-20s. The last joke was, I can't run for the White House, I'm only in my early 30s. I don't really know what to do with that joke anymore. There's not much I can say other than I won't get Social Security for decades. And what's really, really annoying about turning 40 is that I spend my days with teenagers who are absolutely horrid at correctly guessing my age. I was getting food for my 40th birthday bash, and a young lady at the supermarket was getting food out of the cart, and she said, hey, it looks like you're having a big birthday. I said, in fact, I am. I'm having a milestone birthday. She said, oh, really? Are you turning 50? I just paused for a second, and I said, no, 60. Don't I look great? But in all seriousness, if there is anything I have learned in my 40 years on this earth, it is just how difficult it is to do anything really well in this life. Do you remember this scene from The Empire Strikes Back? It's not a particularly memorable or important scene. It's the moment when Luke decides he's going to leave Dagobah. Yoda is telling him, don't go, you're not ready to face Vader yet. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, check this out. The amount of revision and thought and criticism that went into getting this scene right is mind-boggling. As Yoda might say, difficult it is. And just for the record, I like Star Wars, but I'm not one of those people who camp out for weeks ahead of time. I named my daughters Lauren and Emma, not Leia. I didn't name my son Chewbacca or something weird like that. But the point is crystal clear. If it is this difficult to get a few seconds of a movie right, just how difficult is it to educate another human being? So let us not mince words this afternoon. Teaching a child in modern America is a challenge like no other. As the famous educational researcher Lee Shulman once said, classroom teaching is perhaps the most complex, challenging, demanding, subtle, nuanced, and most frightening activity ever devised by our species. And here's what's scary. It's getting even harder. Consider these statistics about our students. 1 million do not have homes, 6 million are chronically gone, half of our students are now eligible for free and reduced lunches. Consider all of the things we now do for our students before they even set foot in our classrooms. 3 meals a day, daycare services, counseling for grief, anger, gang involvement, truancy, poverty, bullying seminars. And the list goes on and on and on. We teachers are great, yes, and we are super, yes, but we are not superheroes. Which leads me to my main contention this afternoon. We in this room today, all of us, are a defining generation of educators for America and for the American dream. And so I have a very simple message for you. In order for this country to be everything that it can and should be, we must dare to embrace this challenge. And I have 3 reasons why we must do so. And the first reason is that everybody in this room today, all of us teachers, you will have a moment when you realize that you are not the teacher you always wanted to be. That there is a gap between your ideal teacher self and your real teacher self. That a chasm has erupted between the impact you wanted to have as a teacher and the impact you really have as a teacher. Now, when this defining moment comes, it can either debilitate you or it can rejuvenate you. And we all know what a debilitated teacher on a campus looks like, don't we? And so I say to you today, with all the fervor and passion I can muster, when this defining moment comes, own it, admit it, feel the electrification of failure, and dare to get better. My own defining moment came when I became a father for the very first time. In the weeks after my oldest daughter was born, I realized that there are not enough sunsets or symphonies or sonnets in the universe to describe just how much I loved her. In fact, even the word love is nowhere close to big enough. Now, my defining moment came when I realized that my classroom is filled with young people who are loved as much as I loved my daughter. And what do I want for my daughter? I want her to have teachers who view their own classrooms as a once-in-a-lifetime experience, as a way of punching a ticket to a greater symphony of life. I wasn't even that kind of a teacher that I would want my daughter to have. And I resolved to get better. Now, the second reason why we must dare to embrace this challenge is because the most important thing we do nowadays, and by the way, call this the wisdom of getting 40, because this is a new insight in my life. But what I've realized in the last few years is that the most important thing we do as teachers, no matter if you're teaching kindergarten or college, the most important thing we do has nothing to do with curriculum or grades or scores. And no matter how much we might love our subjects, I love political science. Sure, you love English and history and engineering, but at the end of the day, the most important thing we do for our students is show them what it looks like to be a good human being. What does substantive adulthood look like to a child? What does it look like to be a good father, a good friend, a good citizen? What does genuine commitment look like? Because I have a harsh reality for so many of you out there that I know that you already know about. And that reality is that for so many of our students, the most important and consequential adult relationship they have is with a teacher. Shouldn't be that way. It should be with mom, should be with dad, should be with a family member. But we don't teach in that society, my friends. We teach in a broken society. Now, when we dare to show our students what it looks like to be a good human being, we are teaching them that greatness is not a chance, it is a choice. Isaac Newton once said, "If I have perhaps seen further than others, it's only because I have stood on the shoulders of giants." Well, when we embrace this challenge of our time, we are the shoulders upon which our students stand to see that which they cannot see for themselves. The possibilities of life when one is truly and passionately educated. When we show them what adulthood looks like, what it looks like to be a good person, we're no longer practitioners of education. We're artists of human transformation. Now, the final reason why I would tell you that we need to embrace this challenge of our time is because we don't get to decide which students and which kids to inspire, do we? Now, we all know what magic is, don't we? Right? We think magic is Disneyland or the North Pole. But sometimes we think that magic is those letters we get at the end of the year, right? From the students who tell us that we somehow made a difference in their lives. In those moments, we know that we made a difference. We live for those moments. But you know what? There is something slightly more magical than that. And it's the letters we get from the students who we didn't know that well. The student who was quiet in the corner. The student who didn't stay after class to chat. When we receive those letters, we know in those moments that our voices carried farther and our actions mattered more than what we had originally understood. Because at the end of the day, it's not about selling books or giving speeches or winning teaching awards, no. It's about the kid in the corner whose life is bigger, better, and more pregnant with possibilities because they were your student. When we dare to embrace the challenge of our time, it allows us in this room and beyond to forget the most harmful quote in all of education. And that quote is, "Seeing is believing." My friends, the best teachers in here do the exact opposite, don't you? You believe before you see. You believe that a child can succeed even if they have failed in the past. You believe that a child with high disadvantage can succeed even if the statistics say no way. And you do not apologize for reaching higher and dreaming bigger on behalf of your students. Now, in conclusion, I know that in the years ahead, you are going to come to a fork in the road. Now, by the way, the first thing I did when I devised this speech was, make sure I used that slide. I love that. A fork in the road. This is not the kind of fork in the road that you're going to come to. But when you come to this kind of a fork in the road, I want you to remember something for me. And this something I want you to remember, well, it's a secret. But it's something that we've all felt and experienced. But I bet you never talked about it to your parents. You never talked about it with your friends or even your spouses. So what am I talking about? Do you remember when you were children and you had that flicker of hope about what your life might be someday? Perhaps the winds of destiny whispered into your ears, "You're special, you matter, your life will be significant," and maybe, just maybe, you haven't heard that voice for quite some time. Maybe you were embarrassed by it. Maybe you associated it with the hubris of the young. But my friends, if we are going to dare to embrace this challenge of our time, then you must listen to that voice again. Because if you are a classroom teacher, that voice was right. You do matter. Your life is significant. You are doing something important. And I know that you are, because consider everything that doesn't work when we teachers don't work. The spirit of democracy will vanish. Social mobility becomes a fiction. And most tragically of all, our students will never achieve their dreams because they won't even know what those dreams are. Now, I'm looking around this room, and I see that look on a lot of your faces. And that look says, why us? Why now? Why this generation of educators? And the only answer I have for you, my friends, is that our civilization has chosen us for this mission. Bobby Kennedy once said, "Some people look at the world and ask why. I dream of a world that never was and ask why not." I leave you today with these questions. Why can't we get better? Why can't we be the shoulders upon which our students stand? And most importantly, why can't we dare to embrace this challenge of our time? I think that we can, I think that we must, and ultimately I believe that we will. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. That was awesome.